when a vow is taken, it's important to do so from a place of faith, all right? From a place of peace, from a place of joy, as opposed to subconsciously taking a vow stemming from resentment, you know? And this is what we call a bitter root judgment. Very often, subconsciously, we take vows, right? So, for example, you'll hear people saying things like, oh, I've been so hurt by men in my life. All men are dogs. I don't need a man in my life. I'll never get married, right? That's an inner vow that's happening subconsciously, and it's stemming from a bitter root judgment. And that's something to be careful of, right? We also find that some people will make vows unconsciously or subconsciously where they might say, I'll never do business with those types of people again, okay? That's also a vow being made subconsciously. Be careful of those types of vows, especially made in bitterness, right? And in judgment of a certain group of people. Because there'll be times when you're now praying for breakthrough, and then someone from that particular group comes to you, but somehow you can't receive them, right? They come to you and they're key to your breakthrough, but you can't receive them. So this is the counterfeit of godly vows that are based on thanksgiving, based on faith, based on consecration. All right? Bitter root judgments tend to stem from wounds, they tend to stem from pride, and they stem from self-protection. Okay, it's often self-protective behavior. So I've shown you so far that Hannah made a vow, not even concerning herself, but concerning her son, right? And committed that son to the Lord when God had given her the particular breakthrough. And it almost seems like there's a side of God where he knows, you know what, I trust this person, and I believe that this person will follow through with this particular vow. So let me bless them with that particular thing. I believe that sometimes that's how God also sees it. Then I showed you vows in the New Testament where we see that Paul the Apostle actually made a vow. And we don't know what the context was, but we see that he would practice that kind of thing, right? It might not have been a lifetime vow. It might have been a vow for a certain period of time, all right? And then I've also highlighted to you that it's important that vows stem from a place of consecration, a place of brokenness before God, not self-righteousness, not self-protective behavior, right? And not from a bitter root judgment. Now, when people get married, they exchange vows before God, right? This is a type of prayer of vows, isn't it? It's a commitment that you are making. It's a promise that you're making before God. A lot of songs that we sing are actually a declaration of vows to the Lord. And that's why we must be careful when we sing those particular songs to follow through on the vow that we are actually making. We need to be conscious of what we're singing. A lot of our worship songs are actually prayers of consecration and prayers of vows. And many vows are actually made in the context of establishing covenant with God. And I believe that God wants us to be covenantal people in the same way that he's a covenantal God. Covenant is just a big word for an agreement. So there are covenants that we make with God. And in the context of that covenant, we make promises saying, this is my part of this covenant, and this is what I will do, right? Other vows are purity vows, or vows of some form of abstinence, right? And young people today, Christian people, godly people, are making chastity vows, right? And they'll wear a purity ring as a reminder of such vows that they've actually taken. And I believe that that's also important. You see, I remember in my high school days, last couple of months of high school, a number of us had decided to go to a particular university here in South Africa. And I remember having a conversation with a couple of friends of mine, and we were talking about how we intend to keep ourselves pure sexually throughout our university days. And I remember one particular friend basically saying, yeah, but guys, you never know what can happen, eh? You never know. And he sounded very humble the way he was saying it. But lo and behold, a couple of months into his time at university, he lost that particular purity, right? That commitment that some of us had made, other people had made. Sometimes we fall into sin because we didn't make a commitment or a promise not to do so, right? We wanted to keep our options open. I encourage you young people, right? Don't be afraid of making promises to God, and make sure you follow through on them, right? It will make it more difficult for you to fall into the trap and the snare of the enemy, right? And sometimes it's good to then have something symbolic for that particular vow that you've made. right? It could be a ring that you put maybe into, onto the one hand. That's not necessarily your marriage hand. So think through that. But they're chastity vows that people are making today as a reminder of their commitment to God and their commitment to their future spouse. This is so powerful because it's so easy to betray your future spouse before you've even met them, right? These purity vows can also be powerful as a commitment to walk according to a particular standard in specific aspects of your life, right? And the vow that you take, it's actually a way of pre-deciding how you're going to live, right? And remember, I keep saying to you that discipline is following through with what you've pre-decided is best for you to do despite your emotional state at the time. So for example, you can make a covenant with your eyes like Job did, right? In Job 31 verse 1, it says, I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a young woman, right? Now, what's the nature of that covenant? There's a vow. There's a vow. There's a vow that you take. I've made a promise to myself. So for example, if there's a TV program and there's a scene that's not appropriate, I've made a covenant with my eyes. There's certain things I've chosen not to look at, right? That's a type of vow, right? So if it's quite a decent movie and I need to fast forward that section, well, it gets fast forwarded. My wife is usually good at that skill, fast forward. I just look away, right? Sometimes we think we're these strong Christians and we're mature adults and it's fine. This happens in life. Let's just look at it. No, you make a covenant with your eyes. And Job said, I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a young woman. You see, there's the look because you're noticing people around you, so you can't avoid looking at someone. But what's dangerous is the second look, the lingering eye. All right? And part of such covenant making involves a prayer of vows.